Recently, I read a comment that said, Demon Hunters killed WoW PvP. You hear a comment like that, your first impression, that's dumb, that's idiotic, that's stupid, that's someone who had a bad day in Arena or a random battleground or an RBG against a Demon Hunter. Maybe, maybe not. I tend to subscribe to the school of thought that I want to listen to what people have to say, the comments that they leave, for a few reasons. One, if I show that their insight possesses value, they're going to feel good. They're going to come back. There's going to be a better chance that they could have some dialogue, feel like a person. It's more of a relationship than a worship when it comes to being a content creator. And I love that. And I love that about a small channel. It's the only advantage that I have, that I can engage in dialogue with my subscribers by responding to comments. Plus, they might offer some insight that would improve my gameplay with a particular class, maybe just give me a different perspective on things, a certain strategy in Arena, Battlegrounds, etc., etc. And of course, the last thing is that, maybe they have something good to say, something that's insightful, that's going to make me make a more well-rounded, a more objective video about a particular topic. So I do subscribe that people have some pretty good things to say, and I want to read what they say and respond to it. Now, of course, there are those people that will start things off with, Luxley, you idiot, Luxley, you moron, Luxley, you suck, Luxley this, blah, blah, blah. Just, they're firing insults off the bat. Right out of the gate, boom, insults. And when people start talking like that, they're not looking to criticize. They're just looking to take out their bad day on somebody else. If you really, really want to convince, if you really, really want to persuade, you're not going to begin something with an insult. It really doesn't make any sense. And that's true for anything in life. So when those people are talking, they're not looking to make a point. They're just looking to shove something pointy at me. It's part of the gig, okay? I get it. But the fact is, if you're not trying to be persuasive, if you're not trying to be respectful, I'm not going to listen. But if you are, I'm going to listen. And this guy made a comment. He said, Demon Hunters have killed or ruined PvP. To the point that, picture everybody in a pool, it's summertime, and then all of a sudden I do a whistle, but I'm not good at whistling. And they whistle, and the guy says, okay, everybody out of the pool. Everybody out of the pool. Summer's over. Everybody's got to go to school. That's what Demon Hunters did to PvP. That was his perspective. And since he wasn't insulting and he was respectful, I said, all right, my first impression is this is an idiotic comment. This is a stupid, ridiculous comment. This is a guy, like I said, who had a bad day in a battleground, in Arena, in World PvP against a Demon Hunter. He's got no basis to say this. This is idiotic. But if you really look at it, and you start to look at it from different perspectives, the guy makes sense. Makes a hell of a lot of sense. Now, I'm not even trying to pretend to say here that Demon Hunters ruin PvP, but it's part of the equation here. It really is. And let me explain my thought process. I've been doing a lot of low-level BGs. Been playing a Rogue, Warlock, Warrior, and Hunter. 2 on the Alliance, 2 on the Horde. Switching it up. And I've been having a lot of fun. And what I've noticed, Warriors are gods among men when it comes to damage. Disc Priests are gods among men when it comes to healers. Warriors do tremendous damage. They have pretty decent uptime. And Disc Priests just can't be killed. It takes at least 3-4 people to kill them at low-level PvP. Now, when DKs step into the equation, suddenly I'm not as strong on my Warrior. It's more of a fight. Sometimes the Frost DK wins, sometimes I win. I guess it comes down to who has their cooldowns up and who initiates, because a lot of times it's about who initiates the combat, who's going to get that first shot. Frost DKs are stronger than most other classes out there at low-level PvP, but they give Warriors a fight and they start to equal and even things out. But when you get to max-level PvP, that's when Demon Hunters come into the picture. Let's take a quick look at some of the things that max level PvP possesses that lower level PvP doesn't possess, because there's more factors here than just Demon Hunters. For example, you don't have access to improve your eye level at lower level PvP like you do at max level PvP, where you can get Batten gear, gladiator gear, conquest kind of gear. You can do mythic dungeons, you could do heroic rating, mythic rating, all of which will increase your eye level. You don't have that access at low level PvP. So you're not really increasing your eye level that much, and you're not getting that extra 5 or 10% bonus from gaining those extra eye levels. The other element that's not in low level PvP is obviously the artifact. You have your on-use ability, and then you have a ton of passive abilities. that really start to round out and complete your overall toolkit. Granted, some are stronger than others, but as far as classes go and as far as artifacts go, but overall speaking, everybody's playing on an even playing field with this regard. The third thing that you don't see at low-level PvP are legendaries. Now, you might say, wait a minute, Lux, wait a minute. Legendaries don't have the full effect in PvP. You just get the benefit of the eye level, which is true. But what legendaries do is they fill the gap that might be missing in other levels in other areas of your game. In other words, the regular talents don't make up for it. The artifact doesn't make up for it. So there's that little bit of a gap that a legendary fills. And to prove my point, try doing a mage tower on certain classes without a certain legendary. Is it impossible? No. Is it very difficult and challenging? Yes. That's what legendaries are for. That's why they have a purpose. Because they're filling a gap that the toolkit does not have in something like the mage tower, does not have in something like a heroic dungeon or a mythic dungeon or heroic raiding, because it defines their purpose. So when you get to max level, you might be getting a little bit of a benefit from the eye level, but there's also that hole for certain classes. Not all of them, but a few of them, because they don't have that legendary. And all these things factor into the overall style and gameplay of max level PvP. And of course, the PvP talents are not anywhere to be found low level PvP. That's another thing that factors into the equation. And some are stronger than others for classes. I think overall, we can make a general statement that encapsulates all of the classes. That it's really only the last two tiers that have an impact. But the fact is that impact is greater for certain classes than it is for others. So lower level PvP is more of an even playing field. So it's not just the fact that demon hunters are missing. Let me give you an example of frost mages as a pretty decent, fair kind of play. Because they do have tremendous mobility, they do have tremendous burst damage, they have windows of burst, and they have very, very good CC, especially against melee. What they lack completely is any kind of healing. They just don't have it. You got to depend on somebody else for that. Let's look at demon hunters now. Burst damage? Absolutely. Unquestionably. And if you're going to say no and disagree, you're playing a demon hunter wrong. Or you haven't really run into any average demon hunters at best. Mobility. Pretty darn good. Their mobility is really, really good. Better than most melee classes. Healing. It's excellent, the healing. Because, yes, it's bursty and there's windows of opportunity where you can heal. But the two good things about it is it's on a manageable cooldown, and you don't lose uptime of damage when you're healing, because you're healing as you're doing damage with Metamorphosis. It's a leech. The only thing they lack in their toolkit is really CC. They have enough to make their presence felt, but it's not as good as some other classes. But the problem here is out of the three out of the big four categories are really, really strong, and you don't want to give a lot of mobility, let alone a lot of healing to a class that has big burst damage. But yet, demon hunters have this. And they're pretty much the only class in the game that has excellent healing, excellent mobility, and excellent burst damage. That's problematic. That's terrible game design. Now, when it comes to game design and it comes to PvP and an MMO, you kind of want to look at it in two ways. And this is being very, very general. Do you want the game to be homogenized, or do you want the game to be specialized? For example, homogenization. In other words, every class can do and can counter every CC in the game. Basically, you're feared, you have something that can get you out of fear without using your trinket. You're stunned, you have something to get you out of stun without using your trinket. Or you break it down into all those different DRs you could break out of most things. Oh, not everything, that would be ridiculous, but maybe a huge percentage, an overwhelming majority of those things. You could break out of CC without using your trinket. That's the point. Now, to add a little bit of specialization, what you might do is you might have something be on a very short cooldown, say 30, 40 seconds to get out of a particular CC, and then something else maybe on a 3-minute cooldown, where it's accessible, but not something that can be abused. For example, maybe something like Lickborn for DK. You give it to DKs, and maybe every 3 minutes you get out of a fear. Is it really going to hurt the gameplay overall? No. But at least you have it in your toolkit without using a trinket to get out of that fear in a pinch every 3 minutes as opposed to every 30 seconds. That's the point I'm saying. So homogenization does have a little bit of specialization. Specialization is a little bit different. Specialization would be a rock, paper, scissors kind of thing. And you just accept the fact that certain classes can overpower other classes and just kill other classes in a 1v1. That's okay, provided you don't give a class like a Demon Hunter huge burst, huge mobility, and huge healing. Right there, that goes against the entire concept of doing PvP based on specialization. Here's something else where there's some homogenization in this current build of PvP. Every single melee has a silence, has an interrupt. If we were truly specialized, why are we homogenized by giving everyone an interrupt? Now, Melee will argue we need the interrupt. For Arena to interrupt healers, we need the interrupt. Yeah, okay. So don't tell me the game is specialized. Because if you flip the coin over and you look at it from a perspective of ranged don't have a disarm. Nobody has a disarm that's ranged. And if anything, Blizzard added more gap closers into the game. For example, Shadow Step. 30-second cooldown, 2 charges, currently in Legion. And this is kind of a similar thread with every single melee class. They pretty much have 2 charges within a 20 to 40-second window to close some gaps. Of course, there's exceptions here, but pretty much, if we're going to play the game of majorities, the fact is, that's the case. 2 charges, around 30-40 seconds. If you spin the clock back to Wrath of the Lich King, you had half the amount of charges in twice the amount of time. Something like Shadow Step might have had about a 40 or 1 minute cooldown. Now, I'm not saying Shadow Step specifically, but other gap closers, that's the case, where you were able to use it half as much within 2 times that time frame. This also is not specialization. This is homogenization. The point I'm trying to make here, even though Blizzard is trying to sell us this game that we revamped the classes, we tweaked class fantasy, there's an element of specialization in the game, there's no homogenization in the game, we're moving away from that. No, you're not. This game has been a little bit homogenized, a little bit specialized, and not choosing a side for a very, very long time, going back to Kata. And the fact is, you cannot be a little bit pregnant. It's either one way or the other. And I'd be willing to go in either direction here. I'd be willing to try a PvP set, PvP mechanic where classes are truly specialized. Certain classes are just going to trump others. Or I'd be willing to try something that's purely homogenized. But this in-the-middle crap is really not working. And what it's doing is it's creating a lot of OP classes because of these certain specializations. And when I'm talking OP, I'm talking about giving a class incredible healing, incredible damage, and incredible mobility all within the same toolkit. You cannot tell me a single other class in PvP that has that same toolkit. It doesn't exist. It's just Demon Hunters. It's extraordinarily frustrating. I'm not a bad player. I'm not going to say I'm this rank 1 guy. I'm not even going to say I'm this consistent 2K rated guy. I'm not a bad player. And on my Shadow Priest and on my Hunter, I cannot beat a Demon Hunter. I cannot beat an average Demon Hunter. You can say what you will about that, but the fact is, it's true. And I look at video and I look at things and I say to myself, there's nothing else I could have done. There's nothing I could have done different other than just completely avoid the guy. You know, and these are the kind of things that turn people off to PvP. These are the kind of things that make people not want to progress in PvP. And there's always that overpowered element. I don't mean to pick on Demon Hunters here. That's not necessarily the point. The point is that why do we consistently have to elevate a particular class to godlike status in PvP? Especially when we're in this age where we're focusing on normalized gear and making things equal and making things balanced. And yet, it's still not there. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. You know, maybe in some ways the OP tune is there so bad players can think they're good. You kind of see it in every single MMO. You kind of see it in every single game. It's part of the program. It is. Whether it's World of Warcraft, it's Guild Wars 2, or some other MMO and PvP, there's just always that overpowered class. There's just always that class that's going to piss off and upset the other people, the other 11 people that don't play that class. And then what ends up happening, everybody wants to play that class. Everybody wants to basically be that class, and that's not good either, because then people start abandoning things because they want to make an impact. They want to be able to make an impact, and playing the OP class, I think, is a bad thing, and there is a case to be made here that Demon Hunters really kind of hurt PvP, and they're part of the problem. Now, going forward, I think they're going to be nerfed a bit. This is Luxley saying, whatever it is by you, whether it's morning, afternoon, or night, make it epic.